I'm Ryan Watt, the Executive Director of Indie Memphis. Thank you for joining us to discuss the new film Strawberry Mansion with the directors Albert Birney and Kentucker Audley. This talk is co-presented with Crosstown Arts and coincides with our Sundance Satellite Screening of the film at the Malco Summer Drive-In. The mission of Indie Memphis is to create community through independent film and support the development of filmmakers. We fulfill our mission through 4 programs: our annual film festival in the fall, coming up on its 24th year, our year-round cinema, filmmaker development program, and our youth film program. Take a look at our YouTube channel if you want to browse through our previous talks, or go to indiememphis.org to learn more. One of our closest partners since 2014 is Crosstown Arts, and they're a supporting partner of today's discussion. We host a monthly filmmaker forum with them called Shoot and Splice, which you can now enjoy virtually. The mission of Crosstown Arts is to serve the creative community of Memphis. When we're not in a global pandemic, they're serving the community through the resources of space, including the Green Room, an intimate music performance venue and listening room, the 400-seat Crosstown Theater, which is dedicated to music and film, a shared art-making facility, a computer lab, print shop, recording studio, individual editing bays, 2 large galleries, a screening room, and a year-round multidisciplinary artist residency program. Filmmakers are encouraged to apply to the residency program, so go to crosstownarts.org to learn more. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring on the filmmakers here. This is Albert Birney and Kentucker Audley joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I'll just briefly mention that, yeah, it's been great knowing Kentucker here for a decade or so. I had a chance to work with you on your movie Open 5, which actually has a quick scene at the drive-in in Memphis that the movie will be premiering at for our Memphis satellite location.
Definitely. That's what I thought of when I first heard the summer location, was that filming that scene out there, and fond memories of being in Memphis, driving down Summer and going to the drive-in. So I'm excited to be there.
Yeah. So that was the movie Open 5 and I don't know, 2010-ish, somewhere. Yeah. Okay. And then, you know, I got to know Albert as well a little bit when you guys had Sylvio that we played at Indie Memphis a few years ago. So I guess I'll just kind of start there. I mean, I did a quick IMDb and saw that you guys were both on Alison Bagnell's, Funny Bunny. I was just curious, is that how you first met each other, or did you know each other even prior to that?
Yeah, we had met briefly a couple years before at the Maryland Film Festival. I was there with a film that I did, and Kentucker was there, I think, with Bad Fever. So this would have been like 2011. And then, we met each other briefly and had traded a couple emails back and forth. I think I asked him soon after if he wanted to act in a movie that I was writing called Strawberry Mansion, and it was half formed. This was I think 2012, actually. Yeah. So, he was very nice and said, yeah, let me take a look at it. And then a couple months later, we found ourselves both working on Funny Bunny. And at that time, I had been making vines with this gorilla named Sylvio, and Kentucker had the insight or the foresight, some kind of sight, to say, hey, we should make this into a movie together. And so that's kind of where our collaboration first really began, working on that movie in Philadelphia in 2013.
Yeah, we had met like previously, but on the set of Funny Bunny is when we really hit it off and really understood that we had a similar sensibility and we liked each other, and we like had fun. Just that movie was kind of chaotic, the filming of Funny Bunny, and it was funny because Albert was he was operating the boom on that film, and he was the most famous person on set because his Vine had over 500,000 followers, and meanwhile, me being the star of the movie had basically no followers. So there was just some funny, like fame dynamics at work that is sort of inversed from the typical, behind the scenes kind of vibe. And we just really hit it off and had fun and wanted to work together. And Sylvio, it's cool to do, content online for video apps, but it's like those things don't last. So what you really want is you want to make a movie. So that's what we did. And I'm glad we did, because shortly before our premiere, Vine shut down, and only thing that remains is the movie, as it'll always be.
Do you feel your fame dynamic is balanced out now, or are you still reaching for Albert's stardom?
I always feel in the shadow of Albert.
Okay.
I'm always trying to catch up. Now he's got a new Instagram character series called Tux and Fanny, and it's equally well liked and well regarded. And I feel like my whole working with Albert is just trying not to drag him down too much.
Yeah, I have no comment on that.
Well, I'll tell you the comment I first texted Miriam, our artistic director, right when I finished the movie, that I hope you'll appreciate or not be insulted by. I don't know. I said it felt to me like the Marvel of DIY filmmaking. Like it was clearly the DIY aesthetic vibe, but it just felt like you had a lot of toys to play with potentially, and a lot of great collaborators, and able to do things that I can only guess you might not have been able to do in previous projects. So yeah, I guess, I don't need to know like budget numbers or anything like that, but just, am I right to say this is kind of the most ambitious project you guys have made yourselves?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Marvel movies, because I think the two of us together have maybe seen like half of one of all of those Marvel movies. But we're aware of them, and we kind of, with this one, we're very aware that this is still kind of like in the Sylvio universe, and we're just expanding a little bit. And the next one, we want to keep pushing that and kind of like go even bigger and deeper into like the fantasy and the strange characters and the lore and everything. But yeah, it was definitely a step up for us from Sylvio in terms of like what we could pull off. Just like the simple fact that, we had more like producers kind of helping us behind the scenes, and just a little bit more available in terms of special effects and animators and mask makers. And Sylvia was kind of like our first time really working together, kind of just like a very small story, and this one we wanted to kind of like take the heart and the feelings from Sylvia and just kind of expand them, but still keep it within that same universe. So
yeah, I think there's this interesting divide between movies like superhero movies and fantasy movies that are like the mainstream movies, and then indie movies that are for some reason supposed to be naturalistic or edgy, or like are dark, or are cynical or something. It's like for some reason that line got drawn in the sand at some point, and it always shifts, I feel like. But I feel like it's the cynicism and the naturalism is kind of, it's fading in interest for me. And I think it's cool and interesting to try to do something that feels bigger emotionally, less realistic, more fantastical, and but as an indie movie, and as a movie that is coming from a place of like just passion and excitement, and not anything, not about making money, not about impressing anybody with your sort of like visual effects, but just coming from a place of excitement to try to push the envelope with your story and your characters and your visual effects. And like Albert said, the mask and the stop motion animation, and the sound design, it's just fun to push those elements. For so many years, I feel like I didn't let myself push any buttons that were cinematic. And I feel like now is just the time to just try to push as many buttons as we can and just try to make an exciting a story. And I feel like that's where we're at with Strawberry Mansion, and hopefully we'll keep continuing that path for at least one more movie.
Yeah, I feel like you can proudly wear your movies hat while touting this movie around. So, well, I'm assuming many people watching this have seen the movie, although likely some haven't. I think most of the movie, I think you just kind of have to see it to experience it. There's only a few plot points maybe I'll avoid. But how much with this going in and out of dreams throughout the movie, how much of this literally came from dreams you guys had? I mean, like while writing, would you wake up and like literally jot down a dream, dream notes or anything like that?
Yeah, I think definitely we got in the habit of sharing dreams, especially like, very vivid ones or interesting ones. But so often with sharing dreams, it's like really hard to translate like the feeling of it, and you're halfway through like talking about your dream to your friend, and you can just tell that they're like so bored, and it's like, none of the feeling and the emotion of what you experience comes through. Um, so I don't know if like, I'm sure there was like little nuggets here and there. I'm kind of forgetting them now, but it's more of just like taking the energy of dreams and like, the overall feeling and just kind of trying to like write with that in mind of like, anything can happen. You can turn around and be in a whole different place. The people you're talking to suddenly are gone and someone else is there. Just like that general kind of surrealism, I guess, that is, makes up a lot of dreams. But also like, a lot of my dreams aren't super exciting. Like they're going to be, sitting around a table or just like, and like not shying away from that either. Like there's some scenes in the movie that, no spoilers, but like, are maybe like, they could have been a lot crazier or wilder, but it's like, I love what happens when it's kind of like a boring moment in a dream, but there's still that feeling of dread that's kind of like underneath it all. Um, yeah, I don't know, Kentucky.
Yeah, well, we we definitely wanted there. We were trying to cultivate a sort of dreaminess on set. We wanted. I feel like we wanted to like have a dream journal that everyone was writing down their dreams while we were filming. Albert and I drank dream tea while coming up with this thing. But it trying to capture a dream is an impossible thing. So my feeling is that if it just doesn't feel real, then it automatically feels like a dream. Well, it's that line of like, oh, this feels both very real and plausible in the emotional headspace, and also like this isn't how people act. This is not how reality that I've experienced goes down. So it's really finding that balance of dreaminess and reality that are things that feel real. I don't really have vivid dreams, so um, I'm just starting to watch the Miyazaki films, which Albert has been very influenced by over the years, and I feel like I feel like my imagination has been tamped down over the years because I watch only realistic movies, but I think I expect my dreams to start getting a little more fantastical now that I'm starting to watch these Miyazaki films.
And I'll say one more thing about that is, oftentimes, you wake up in the morning, or I'll wake up in the morning and I won't necessarily remember all the details, but I know I was dreaming, right? And it's like, I always think like, well, those are still in there somewhere. The feelings, the emotions, the images, like, even though I can't access them, they're in there. And when we were editing the film, specifically, kind of no spoilers, the one part where the main character is getting chased through the house, kind of like at a halfway point, I was watching the scene kind of come together, and it actually really reminded me of a dream that I had totally forgotten when I was a kid, of being chased through a house. So it was kind of like this strange moment where it became a dream that I had even though I wasn't like aware of it. It was like bringing up. It was almost like exactly how I remembered the dream too. So I was like, whoa, this is, this had probably just been lying dormant in there. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you, as well as you could, you were able to create a dream world that felt real to what dreams can be, especially when you have a really messed up dark dream. and also just, I think everyone has those dreams where you start to explain it, and it always starts with, well, I was at my house, but it wasn't really my house. And then,
Right.
always, and that came across, whether it's in the all pink room or so on.
Yeah.
I was happy to see the bucket of chicken behind you, which I don't know how you decided for chicken, eating fried chicken to be such a huge piece to the movie, but I was really glad to see that there was a chicken wrangler in the credits, because I was curious, just, did you guys just load up on a local franchise's chicken? Did you have a caterer on set making it? How did you have so much chicken that was edible at all times?
Yeah, well, first shout out to the chicken wrangler. That was my brother who, as long as he's been alive, he has been a chicken wrangler just by his very nature. He loves chickens, and anytime I've ever needed, I've filmed with chickens before for vines or short films, and he's always my go-to. If I need help with the chickens, he can run and get.
Oh, so that was actually the live chicken wrangler. He was.
Yeah, that was a live chicken wrangler. In terms of our fried chicken, that was I think our Becca, who did all of the production design and the art and stuff. I think she might have just gone to a local place and would look ahead at how many days before we needed to film and try to get it fresh as she could. But there was usually, like, we needed to do a pickup shot, and the chicken might have not been the freshest, and people would be spitting it out after the takes.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that chicken went down the throat. It was a lot of pretend chewing.
And
It's
editing it
impossible.
too. I would get, like, I don't know if you'd get this, Kentucker, but like I'd get fried chicken cravings and like have to stop editing and go get some and eat like a bucket and feel so sick, and
Yeah.
like 2 months later I would be right back doing it again. But I think I got it out of my system. I don't think I need any fried chicken for a long time.
Yeah, that it is a big element in the movie, and it's sort of like it wasn't necessarily intended to be that big of an element. Um, but I don't know. I guess it kind of just like, well, it's kind of like the KFC thing, um, but also it's just when you get something stuck in your head, uh, it's hard to go away from it, and also just to keep it simple of how like simplistic the algorithms or whatever it is that the ads are. It's just sort of like that's the ad at the time that it's like that's the one ad they keep coming back to, and like the over like the just like how much they just feed you the same ad over and over if they feel like they have a receptive audience.
Yeah, and I think it's also just it's kind of fun to have a certain type of food throughout the movie. Like in an earlier movie I made, the Beast Pageant, there were a lot of fish. In the Tux and Fanny world, there's I guess there's chicken. In Sylvio, there's cheese curls, little cheese puffs, and so I think it's just nice to know like what's the official food that we're gonna try to sneak throughout the movie. And this one, it just turned out to be, yeah, fried chicken.
Well, you're just mentioning other things I was going to get to later. I'll just kind of navigate to. I mean, just this concept of corporations advertising to us in our dreams is such a, um, you know, really cool idea. And I guess if I recall, the year 2035, I believe, is the setting for the movie. And just how much have you guys talked through, like, this doesn't seem unrealistic that this could happen? Like, it was that kind of part of when you were writing the script, something that seemed plausible.
Definitely. And I think I've already, I've had dreams where it's very explicit, like I'm at a Starbucks or I'm holding like a Starbucks coffee in my hand, and you wake up and you're just kind of like, oh man, like I was just like an ad I had all night, like, because the ads are in our waking life everywhere. They just, the corporations, the brands, they naturally filter in. Um,
Yeah,
yes.
I would say it's pretty inevitable. I mean, where else are they going to go? That's the last vestige of uncharted territory for them, the corporations. So yeah, I expect to find them there in a couple years, maybe 30 or 40 years.
Scary.
Yeah.
Well, you guys mentioned Becca.
Yeah.
You mentioned Becca, your production designer. You know, like there seems to be, I mean, hardly any frames in this movie where there isn't either practical design or visual effects. I mean, I don't know if you just want to talk some about her and the other people on the team that just, I mean, made this whole world come together.
Yeah, we had a lot of people working, and yeah, specifically Becca and I started working. I think like I don't know 5 or 6 months before we were filming, just like gathering things and painting things and um, designing the logos and the brands and you know to kind of create this world. We knew we were gonna need all this stuff like just like machines and things. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like 6 months before we started, and then like really like maybe a month and a half or 2 months before we really got serious with it, and like just I spent like so many days, hot gluing. Marnie Ellen Hertzler made the dream helmet, that the ad blocker. I started to make that on my own, and she saw what it was becoming, and she's like, okay, let me do this, let me take over. And very, very thankful for that. But yeah, it was like, I think just a bunch of us, we would have these like days where we would just put a call out to our Baltimore friends or friends of friends saying, anyone that wants to come out and hang out, we'll get some pizza, and we just need help, like, unscrewing VHS tapes and painting them black, and building machines, and just kind of like all of the work we needed, extra hands for. Like even the tape people that walk in the field, there's like 30 of those suits, and we had to like take apart the VHS tapes, get the ribbon out, put them back together, cut the ribbon up, glue it onto clothes. It was like, yeah, just really laborious. So thankfully, everyone had a pretty good time. It was like a beautiful, when we filmed, it was like a really nice fall. So everyone was just sitting outside as like the leaves were falling all around us. And yeah, thankfully we got everything done. I think some of the pink paint was maybe even still drying by the time we filmed. It was like kind of under the wire, but yeah, it came together.
Yeah, that's another thing I'll say about indie films generally is sort of like the natural way to envision a room or a space, and I think it's fun. That's the fun part, even though I wasn't as involved with as Albert. Is the fun part is just to create a space that doesn't look like what you see every day. And I think so much of the heart and fun of the movie is just, like you said, just kind of beholding these like areas where there's nothing natural, nothing that you'd see every day. Very, very meticulously production designed, and so many machines and gadgets that were just built for the film, and they're not what anything has ever looked like. Just sort of trying to be imaginative about what we put in the frame, and just kind of making sure that each frame is full of life in some way, full of just like a richness and a texture.
And like, I mean, the costumes, like the saxophone frog is amazing. I mean, I wrote down the phrase, some of the smoothest tunes we'd ever heard. I mean, there's just a lot of moments like that made me giggle just throughout the movie. But are those just being created from scratch, or the opposite? Are you just sourcing cool looking costumes and sort of fitting them into the narrative?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad you mentioned that line. Albert and I feel like we got some pretty good resistance from our producing team to take that line out. But
really, that's like my favorite line in the movie, practically.
I know, it's just, yeah. So I appreciate that.
I also wrote down "Death to all bad boys."
Yeah,
the chant. But yeah,
cool. About this, yeah, and also like I'm sure that's music to Albert's ears to hear about the frog waiter in general, the saxophone, because that was a fight to the finish as well, to make sure that thing got in there, because there wasn't really a point to it other than just it's a fun visual.
Yeah, and that frog, the frog head was made by Marnie again, who made the ad helmet. So she comes from a sculptural background, And you know, we knew that I was going to be the frog, so she built it like to my head dimensions. Um, but yeah, you know, and then I just like, you know, I went to a thrift store and found like a red jacket and purple pants, and um, then it was kind of, that was it. That was the character, you know. And you put like that head on and like these really baggy purple pants, and all of a sudden you just like know who you are, you know, like you know who this frog is. He plays saxophone, you know. Uh, but
Albert
yeah,
comes alive when he wears costumes. Like he's told me before that he doesn't know what happens when he puts on a costume, but he just knows exactly how to move the body. And like he'll put on a mask and move like I've never seen him move. I don't know what comes over him. It's like you have to kind of keep reminding yourself that's Albert in there, because but yeah, I I guess I'm just glad that you like the character.
Yeah, no, Sax Frog is wonderful. It feels like it could have its own Instagram life. Well, yeah, let's talk about the casting. I mean, starting with Penny Fuller, did either of you have a relationship with her, or did you just kind of seek out the right person?
yeah, that was definitely the hardest character to cast, just because we, you know, she needed to be like 80 plus years old, and that was the one the one role that we actually had help from a casting agent in New York with. She gave us, you know, a list of like 20 people and their headshots and videos, and we went through them. And you know, it was like it's kind of a hard role because yeah, she's older. She's, you know, she's 80 years old, but we wanted her to feel really youthful and young. And a lot of the people we were looking at, they were amazing actors and great reels, but they felt too much like, you know, like a grandmother, or just kind of, maybe they would have been fine, whatever. But when we came to Penny, we said, wow, she has that energy, she has that spirit, and she really does in real life. When you talk to her, it's hard to believe that she's, you know, 80 plus. And yeah, so we just really, we approached her, and she was excited, and yeah, really lucked out. That's the one thing, that the one role where I'm just so happy that we used a casting agent and kind of broadened our search. And so
Yeah,
happy.
the whole movie kind of revolves around her, and we felt very anxious about making this movie without a perfect Bella, and it took years to kind of um, we were scheming for years. It couldn't come up with anybody, you know, and it was coming down to the wire, and we felt like if we don't have the right Bella, then this movie's not going to make sense. It's not going to work. And then we were lucky to get I remember getting watching the tape that we got sent from her after sort of like a long list of people that like Albert said, were great, but I couldn't imagine them as Bella. And then we saw Penny, and she just instantly, within 20 seconds, just was like, okay, she's so full of life, so eternally youthful, and she was our character very quickly. We knew. And beyond that, the younger version of her, played by Grace Glowicki, we've just always loved Grace Glowicki's work as an actor, and she's also a filmmaker herself, and just was really excited to work with her. She's brilliant mind and personality, and very physical. We wanted it to be like a physical role. Like we knew there was going to be more like running and trudging through water, and like, you know, sort of like this. She had to have a physicality that a lot of actors don't have. Linus,
I was about to bring it up.
yeah. Well, Linus wrote himself into the movie because we took a script writing workshop with Linus, and somehow he pulled the wool over our eyes, and he was like, "What if I think there needs to be another character in this movie?" And like he was like, you know, it doesn't have to be me, but he's like, "Who said it was gonna be you?" But then after a while, we were like, "Okay, yeah, that does sound like you, and we probably do need this character." So
That's also one of my favorite elements of the movie is just creepy dream guy. So I think he was right to weasel his way in.
Yeah, no, he was right for the part.
Yeah, and it was very helpful, that workshop. We had already been working on the script for a bit, and it was like I think a 4 or 5 week where we just met once a week through, Zoom with Linus, and would just talk about it and kind of workshop scenes or yeah. So I remember the maybe it was like the third week when he kind of was like, you need something else here. And then we got off the call and Conductor and I were talking and we were like, it's got to be Linus, right? And we both like, oh, he did it. He like got his way in there. And then, yeah, he's got a great, like, he's so good at being kind of like your friend that you want to, hang out with. But then also there's this like scary, devious thing that's lurking right beneath that, or like he can switch to really quickly, which I think was important for the that character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then like Reed Birney and Constance Schulman. So was that through the casting director or more people that you've also worked with?
Yeah, Reed is my uncle. So
Good,
yeah,
good.
I grew up watching him in movies and TV. Specifically, he was in a movie in I think it was 1984 or 85 called Crime Wave, which it was written by the Coen brothers and directed by Sam Raimi. Directed by Sam Raimi right in between Evil Dead 1 and 2. And it's kind of this movie that's been forgotten to time because a lot of people don't say it's very good. But like as a kid, as like a 6, 7, 8-year-old, my sister and I were just obsessed with Crime Wave. We had a copy of it that was, dubbed or copied from somewhere. But to see my uncle like in this starring role in this movie that was so kind of like cartoonish and exciting, and probably I was a little bit young to be watching it for some of the elements in it, but I think it's always stuck with me and maybe kind of put me on my path of being interested in film, knowing that, oh yeah, your uncle is in film. But it's always like I've never worked with him before, and it was always like kind of a dream to get him in a movie, and this was the first one where it kind of made sense. And then Connie, my aunt, who's married to Reed, we have her. She's in Sylvio in a small role, and it kind of made sense if we're getting Reed to get Connie, and then also to get their son, who's my cousin, in there as well. So like, yeah, the family is actually a real family in real life, and they are also my family in real life. So that was exciting to get them in there, and it was just, again, with like an indie movie where you're, it's always a battle and a struggle to do everything. Like if you can do little things like cast your family who are already actors in it, it just makes it a little bit easier and kind of, I don't know, just more of that like family unit on set when you get your small crew and everybody working together, and then, oh, here comes Albert's family for a couple of days of filming, and kind of just informed the energy and everything. So.
Yeah, I had no idea that worked out. I mean, I saw the Birney last name for Brian and wasn't sure if he was your brother or so he's your cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, kind of continuing through the team, the music is awesome by Dan Deacon. And so I looked up, and as it turns out, 3 of the 12 movies we're showing in Memphis, he did the music or score for. All Light Everywhere and original music in the documentary Philly DA, we're also showing. But yeah, I mean, to me, it just like the visual elements were such a cut above. I mean, the score just felt so professional, I mean, for such a DIY vibe of a movie. And how'd you guys come across him?
Yeah, Dan is a Baltimore friend. So we've just known each other for a few years, and always, he saw the Sylvio premiere at South by Southwest in 2017. He was there with Theo Anthony's previous film, Rat Film. So he was at Austin, and we knew each other. We were friends, but we never really like hung out too much at that point. But he saw Sylvio and he really loved it, and saw it again when it played at Maryland. And ever since then, it was kind of like in the back of my head, like, man, that would be just so cool to get him to score it. Because up to that point, he had been scoring a lot of documentaries, like Rat Film and now All Light Everywhere. And I was like, I would love to just kind of give him we would love to give him like free reign in this like fantasy adventure and just see what he could do. And he really, I mean, that was, you know, the last few months of editing with him writing the score was just so fun because, yeah, he just would kind of go away for a few weeks and come back with these amazing pieces, and we put them in. It would just like transform these scenes that we were already so kind of like used to. It would just like totally made the movie what it was. Yeah, so very, very excited that we got to work with him and just everything he did. And yeah.
Yeah, this movie, we've never worked with a composer before, who like composed to pictures and really got into the nuances of like transitions and you know, bleeding into next scenes. And it's like I can't imagine making a movie after working with him. I can't imagine going back now because so much of this movie is dictated by the underlying music leading you through everything. And yeah, he was really able to tackle the emotional shifts and like he understood this movie better than anybody, I think, just because he really digs in and gets deep into the core of what's going on. He would text Al and I and sort of his interpretations of scenes, and it was like, I never even thought about that, but yeah, I mean, he went deep, and he really, I think, understands the movie better than anybody. So I think he could probably talk about the movie better than anybody.
Yeah, that happened so many times where he would send us the new cue, you know, like here's the cue for the pink room, the second pink room, and then he'd have like a paragraph or two kind of talking about what he was doing with the music and what the music was doing towards like the theme, and this character has this instrument and then this comes back to this idea. And yeah, he was totally digging into these scenes, and you know, it was exciting for us because yeah, it was like kind of explaining to us a little bit about what the movie was, but also just seeing someone kind of like really take their job seriously and like want to like honor the movie, and yeah, just his enthusiasm throughout that, I think, really kind of kept Kentucker and I going and like fed us in this like, all right, Dan really is pumped and this is exciting, and like he said, it's coming together and it feels great, so we just got to keep going. You know, because as with any movie, the edit can be a kind of like a long, hard process, and this one, like Sylvio was as well. It's just like you're lost some days, or you're like you do this whole sequence and you realize it's not working, and you have to like kind of take everything apart and figure out the right way to go forward. And Dan's music definitely kind of propelled us and helped us find our way through.
I also like we had worked with the temp track. We're getting a lot of back and forth about Dan because that was a really big part of the process. But our temp track was some of Dan's music and some just other temp music. But then when he gave us like his final versions of the score, it was just like almost every time he gave us a new final version, I was like, my first reaction was it was too much, and then I went back and watched the old version, and I was like, no, it needs to be this big. And I just kept worrying this, like, is this building up the movie to be too big, and it's going to be a disappointment at the end? Mm-hmm. And then throughout the movie, he just, you know, as long as the music stays at that level, like that's where you're at as a viewer, hopefully. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was concerned writing that line, but I feel like that's, if you don't like the movie, at least you like the music. It's like, it's just exciting music. It's just big, bombastic, epic music. So for better or worse, you know, just trusting Dan and just loving his excitement and his passion and wanting to keep getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I'll say, because we're going more about the music, but just in terms of like what you said earlier about like movies brand, or like, you know, a movie's movie, like all these movies that kind of inspired us, these fantasy adventure films from the 80s, like, I don't know, like Neverending Story, Labyrinth, you know, E.T., all these kind of movies that take you on into this other place. The score is such a big part of them, and the way that, like, you know, it just goes 100% into this, you know, place with the strings and the emotions, and yeah, at first it can feel a little bit like, should we go there? And then like over and over again, Dan was like, we're just going there. You know, we're gonna play up the romance. We're gonna like play up the suspense. And um, yeah, same with Tucker. It's hard to like imagine going back now. Like, just want to just keep exploring what you can do with like this over the top score and the energy of the music.
Well, and I'm glad you talked about sort of how much thought Dan put into sort of segueing one scene into another and leading you in, because whether this is true or not, it felt to me like you had a very tight script, like the especially with all these special effects and stuff, that you couldn't wing it. Like you had to really know what you were going to do. And so I don't know how much you adjusted in the edit, but watching it, it felt like everything really had a purpose. And maybe part of that is people like Dan and your editing team and everyone, or I guess you guys edited yourself. Am I correct?
Yeah.
But anyway, so I don't know how true or not that is, but it felt like I was watching something that was just kind of all figured out ahead of time.
It's a movie, man. They got to figure it out before you watch it.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, totally. I'm glad you feel that way, because it didn't, it wasn't like that in the script. It wasn't always like that in the edit. We definitely had to chop a lot. Definitely had to find the story a lot. Yeah, it's we still haven't really heard people's impressions of the movie. So anytime people are like you're pretty much the first outside person we've talked to that's seen the movies. It's like everything you say, I'm like, really? Did it work? But yeah, Albert, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, we could sit here and say, yeah, I mean, every single word got there into the movie, but yeah, we were cutting it. I mean, especially because it's like a dream film where anything could happen. So up to a certain point, like the first 35 minutes, 40 minutes are pretty close to what they are in the script, like with a couple additions or subtractions here and there. But then once it kind of gets off into the dreamscapes, that's where we really were kind of just throwing whole pages out and whole scenes, and taking a thing that was happening here and putting it there, and just really just working to find that, like, even though it's a dream and anything can happen, still have that like storyline kind of carrying you through and that cohesion. And yeah, Dan's music was like that little super glue that could kind of make it all feel totally intentional. And yeah, again, I'm first time hearing someone talk about it. I'm glad that it feels that way.
There was the caterpillar sequence ties together a lot of things that we cut. So that's a little spoiler, but if you would have seen an earlier cut, there would be like a 20-minute section in there where that it was completely replaced by just the caterpillar shots, which are like 3 shots. So there was a lot that we ended up cutting because for various reasons. The biggest reason for me to suggest cuts was just to keep going up rather than sort of like circling back. There were a lot of the original script was a lot about circling back to things we had seen previously, and that was interesting. But I felt like it kept dragging down. Like I didn't want to keep seeing the stuff we were seeing at the beginning. So it's kind of hard to talk about it without. But it just basically we were just trying to keep the pedal down and never make people think like, why are they watching this? Even though I'm sure most people think that anyways.
Yeah, and also like we had a cut that was like 20 minutes longer, and I think both of us were just always like kind of obsessed with getting that 90-minute mark, and that's we like there's something about a 90-minute movie when you see that you're just like, oh, that's a movie, that's like the perfect length. And again, like this is supposed to be just like a movie, a movie.
Yeah. That's the real answer. Is we were trying to get that 90-minute runtime, and also we really want to get a PG-13 rating. And if those things, if we can get rated PG-13, we'll be really excited and happy, no matter what else that happens with our movies. Because we had a couple cuss words. Sylvio's PG, it was never rated, but that's how we think of it, as a family-friendly PG movie. And we wanted to get PG-13 for this one. Next one's going to be R.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you could get PG-13, but it creeped me out in our feeling, if that matters. The demon and yeah, it definitely. And anyway, I hope you get your PG-13 rating and watch it on TBS one day. That'll make it really a movie.
Yeah.
One, I guess, just a couple of last things, but I kind of skipped over. I mean, now knowing that this movie has been ruminating, it's been in the works for a long time, at least the idea. And I guess I'm assuming you filmed in the Baltimore area now, knowing all these Baltimore connections now. Finding that mansion, was that something like you had known about a long time, or was it like this endless pursuit to find the house, you know?
It was a big pursuit. That those like months leading up to it, Matisse, one of the producers, and we would just drive around Baltimore County, all the counties around here, kind of just like driving and seeing things from a distance. And I would drop a pin, and then we got the Maryland Film Office involved, and they sent us some houses, and that was really exciting because it's like these are houses that are okay to film in, and here's 7 houses, and this they hadn't updated their database, I guess, in like over 10 years. So a few times we would go to the house. There was one I'll never forget. I was so excited to see this house, and we get there, and it is just gone. Like there's not even like any remnants of a basement, like it had been filled in and grass had grown over. And we were looking at the pictures of like the house on the phone, like there it is, and then we'd bring down the phone, like it's not there, like the same trees and everything. So yeah, it was definitely like a journey, and then we found the one, and it worked out. And then spoiler alert, but the exterior is different from the interior. Like oftentimes we'd find a great exterior and the interior wouldn't work, so we ended up using 2 different ones. But yeah, when your movie's called Strawberry Mansion, it's like you have to find a good place to film.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a iconic house. I'm sure once you found it, you were thrilled.
Yeah.
I think I'm correct. This was all shot before the pandemic, and I'm just curious if either of you guys have been involved with any projects now that the world has been flipped on its head.
No.
No.
Just been at home. I run a website called No Budge. It screens indie short films online. So that's what I do. Albert has been working on his Tuxafani Instagram TV show.
Yeah, and I mean, we got so lucky when we filmed this. We filmed this, I guess, fall, September and October of 2019, and then a little bit of December of 2019. So it was like, I remember when we finished filming, there was starting to be like a little bit of whisper of the COVID. And then, yeah, like once it happened, Kentucker came down once in January to edit in person. And then, yeah, we just, from then on, just edited over Zoom like this. And it really actually like worked out great for us. Like we could share the screen in Premiere and kind of go back and forth. And yeah, that basically took up all of our 2020 was just editing and, finishing this movie. So haven't really worked on anything else. Can't wait to get back and to work on projects with friends and just to go out to a bar with friends and, have some hugs all around.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's got to be, an odd feeling. You get into Sundance and you're not in the snow and hugging your friends. But hopefully opportunities like this are at least something that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And certainly people in Memphis and other cities like ours will be experiencing it that never would have had that opportunity. So there's some give and take.
Definitely.
Yeah. But any last things you guys want to say?
I'm just really excited to show this movie in Memphis. I think we alluded to, I don't know if we were filming then, but I lived in Memphis for 10 years and I made all my first work there. And Indie Memphis was the first place that screened all my early short films. And I have, I wouldn't be where I'm at without Indie Memphis. And Ryan was a big part of my early development as well. He produced some of my early work, and I really just so happy to be involved in Indie Memphis and that they were involved in Sundance this year. And so that is silver lining. It's disappointing not to be able to go out to Utah, but it's exciting to screen in Memphis at the Summer Drive-In, like a place that I've always loved.
Yeah, ditto.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think we continue to refer to you as a Memphian Kentucker because you always are once you've been here for that length of time. But it's been fun seeing your career as an actor and everything just evolve. And Albert, getting to know your career starting with Sylvio. I need to go in reverse and see some of your earlier work now. Now I know to go to Instagram as my next stop. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hopefully when everyone's watching this on the Sundance website and our YouTube page and stuff, y'all have a chance to interact in some way with comments and such, so you can get some more feedback like me and people that are outside of your orbit seeing the movie. And I think people are really going to love it. So we're really honored to have it actually as our very first film. It's the opening premiere film of our Sundance run.
So great.
Excellent.
Cool. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
All
Ryan.
right, Ryan. Thanks so much.